All right, and welcome into the next edition of the Vegas Squares Picks and Chatter podcast, NCAA edition. We are back here in studio, as we are every Friday when we record, to get you set for the Saturday in college football. We got our picks. We'll analyze the games. We'll dissect the games. We'll pick the games. You'll tail them or fade them. That choice is yours. But I've got the Tonys in studio. I've got Token Tony. What's up, brother?
Not much. How's everything going?
Everything's going good, except for been a little under the weather. The one good thing about being under the weather when you're contagious, well, not anymore. Don't worry about it, gentlemen. But when you were contagious, is they do not want you coming to work. So it's kind of a blessing in disguise. So I haven't been to work in a while, which, work, no money. But, at the same time, sometimes no work is okay by me. But on my left, I've got Tony Johnson and his large binder of numbers and things that I don't even try to comprehend.
Yeah.
What's up, Tony?
We got to have a weird numbers guy. I mean, what podcast would be safe without one of those? But
it's true.
Yep, good to be here. I'm always excited about the slate. I know it's like a same thing over and over again, but I guess I just get too excited about this sort of stuff. But I think as the conferences sort of unfold here, a lot of these games that wouldn't normally be bigger games end up being pretty important. So it just kind of gets me excited as we start talking about it.
Right on. Every time I see Tony looking over these sheets, I think of, obviously, you remember the movie The Hangover, right? When they needed the money, and what's his name? Galifianakis' character.
Pulls the Rain Man, yeah.
He pulls the Rain Man, and he's got all the numbers circling around his head. What the hell's his name? Now it's going to drive me nuts.
That's
Alan.
Alan.
Nice, yeah. That's what your cheat sheet there reminds me of.
I'll be like Alan. That's fine.
Before we dive into the games, any early thoughts about today's slate? There's a lot of good games. Without going too far in depth, just what are the games off the top of your head, guys, that really stand out to you from a fan standpoint of college football?
Well, for me, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, whatever.
They're not allowed to call it a cocktail party anymore.
They can't. Yeah, that's
politically correct.
Unbelievable.
I know.
That is always a game, not being from that area of the country and being a Midwestern guy, but I've still always loved that game and loved watching it because it's just usually a great SEC, atmosphere, and you have two teams that are almost always very good. So always look forward to that game.
And it's not a true home game at that point because, I've been to that game before.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And you literally see where the blue ends and the red begins in parts of the stadium. It's pretty cool.
That is awesome. Yeah, for sure.
And go ahead.
No, that's that game. And actually, I think a very underrated game that I'm super excited about is Iowa and Penn State. I think Iowa's the team that almost around the country no one wants to play right now. They are flying on all cylinders, both sides of the ball. They're tough to read on offense, weirdly enough. They're throwing the ball a bunch on first down now. It's not like your typical Iowa team. It's a very fascinating game. And Penn State, I think, seems to be very motivated. I listened to a lot of the coach speak and stuff like that. McSorley had a long interview on radio that I caught in the middle of the week, and everyone seems really jacked for this thing. I don't think they're feeling down at all. This game is going to be absolutely phenomenal with Iowa and Penn State.
Now, looking at a team like Iowa, I feel like every year they have this notion of, this year they weren't able to beat Wisconsin right now, but they've got lined up matchups against Penn State and Purdue, so giving them, they seem to be, without breaking down everything, they seem to be that team every year that can beat the big boys, but never gets a chance to really play with the big boys because they end up getting tripped up by something unnecessarily. It's that team for me in the Big Ten that's like, nobody wants to play them because they all seem to kind of get beat by them. Last year, didn't Ohio State lose by like 30 to them on the road?
Badly. Yeah. Very badly, yeah.
And this year, Penn State's got that. If they would have beaten, where would they be ranked right now on Token in your spot? They're 18. If they had beaten Wisconsin when they had a chance, where could this team be ranked right now?
Maybe just inside of the top 10, maybe just outside, right around that number, I would think.
They beat an Iowa State team, which it wasn't sexy, 13-3.
That looks legit now.
But it's looking better and better right now, yeah. If they can beat Penn State, beat Purdue, who beat Ohio State, you're talking about a team who, it's shaping up to be the matchup of the year in the Big Ten West is Northwestern and Iowa.
Yeah, nobody saw that coming.
Yeah,
for sure.
Say who picked that one. Anyways, Token, what about as a fan perspective, what matchup really are you looking forward to this weekend?
Oh, as a fan of Michigan State, them against Purdue for sure. Home they desperately kind of need a win to get in bowl spot, I think. I think this is the week where they have to prove themselves against a pretty decent Purdue team, and it's going to be an interesting one for sure.
Yeah, most definitely. You have a team that's probably, at this point, if they can't beat Purdue, they're going to be 4-4 at that point. Big Ten championship aspirations are out the window. I mean, they're virtually slim right now.
Yeah.
They would have to beat Ohio State and hope Michigan, loses 3 games at this point, which seems highly unlikely out of the last 5.
And hope Ohio State loses another one, too, on top of it. And
Yep.
Yeah, it just too much crazy to happen.
If they beat Ohio State and run out the rest, they would be ahead of them at that point. But it's Michigan, really, who's controllers of the East at this point. But like I said, not beating Purdue would put them 4-4, and having to go 2-2 against Maryland, Ohio State, Nebraska, and Rutgers sounds easier than it may actually be to get bowl eligible. So you're right. Yeah, this may be a key matchup, especially since the Purdue team, who is everybody's darling right now after what they saw last week against Haskins, Urban Meyer, and Ohio State. Everybody's rolling, what do they call it, boiler up right now.
Boiler up, Boilermakers, yep.
Yeah, I would say for me personally, the most intriguing matchup right now, and obviously it's easy to say UCF, but actually it's not. It's actually their rivals, USF, having to go into Houston, who is another team, although they're not ranked in the top 25, they are no slouch. They've got a top flight, depending on who you ask, Heisman Trophy candidate and Ed Oliver. For me personally, I say it's almost virtually impossible for a defensive tackle to be really mentioned in that unless the guy's got 15, 20 sacks on the year. Nevertheless, Houston at this point is a 7.5-point favorite going in at home. I mean, South Florida has not looked pretty in their last few games. I mean, they are 7-0. They are ranked 21 in the nation. And I believe that 21st in the nation is more of a gift than any other team getting ranked right now. Well, with the exception of Appalachian State after last night's game. But I mean, you're looking at victories against Elon, Illinois, ECU, Massachusetts, Tulsa, Connecticut, and not just victories. I'm talking about ECU 7-point victory, Illinois 6-point victory, Tulsa 1-point come from behind victory, UConn, who was everybody's basically they wiped their feet with this program, 8-point victory where they had to come back again. So this is a very very interesting blessing, and I hope that South Florida keeps rolling, and I hope that they actually get prepared for this matchup today, because the longer they stay undefeated, the better that Black Friday showdown with UCF looks in the eyes of Kirk Herbstreit and all his old guard up there. So, all right, well, without further ado, I gave you my rant. I'll try to keep it.
We're just going to get one in this podcast?
You may not. You may get more. But
we might get more. Okay.
I had to. You were going to get at least one.
Okay. Well, at least it happened early, so it's good.
There you go. We'll get this P5 old guard AWOD. Anyways, well, let's start. Let's just go ahead and start. And I think I've got my time zones down now. We are going to be starting with the 9 a.m. Pacific starts, jumping in right over there. And let's start with one of the big boys. Let's start with a team that's slotted as a playoff contender right now, and that's Clemson. They're traveling to Doak in Tallahassee to play Florida State. Always a fun matchup. Clemson's won the last 4 matchups in this contest. It hasn't really been close. Florida State's program's been a little bit down as far as overall since Jameis Winston has left. Whether you agree with that or not, that's more so a fact in my opinion. Clemson 7-0, 3-4 against the spread against a Florida State team. We talk about them being a roller coaster. 4-3, 3-1 at home, 3-4 against the spread, 2-2 at home. The line currently right now is 17 points, which is a big number in a rivalry game. And if you're not familiar with this matchup, even before Dabo, Swinney, this has been a rivalry game for as long as I've been alive, being that my family is a Florida State family. And the line currently is live at 50. Money and action pretty much even on this spot. Let's open it up with a big one. Clemson, Florida State, 17 points.
It's a great game. I agree, and I think part of the surprising thing that I saw when it opened at 14 or 14.5, wherever it was, I didn't expect it to move very much, and now that it's moved all the way to 17, I am pretty surprised because I'm actually I know this is going to sound kind of funny as well, but I've actually been very impressed with Florida State and how they've played the last 3 or 4 weeks. They've won 3 out of the last 4 games, and the one loss was at Miami, and that was a game where they really should have won. They had a 3-score lead in the third quarter, and
28-7.
Yeah, they ended up giving up that game, which is going to happen from time, hopefully not too often, but that will happen every once in a while. But they were in command and were clearly the best team on the field for a long time in that game. And then they have wins against some of the weaker teams in conference and also Northern Illinois, but they're still not easy wins you can just roll over. There's not a lot of teams you can completely roll over as much anymore in the ACC. So I've actually been pretty impressed with how well they've played. Been impressed with Francois at quarterback. He hasn't turned the ball over that much in the last few games, and I really think they're playing a lot better and they're moving very much in the right direction. So to me, I was more surprised at the line movement. I didn't have a side yay or nay when this thing opened up, and the total as well seems about right. But I was surprised at how with the money that has gone in on Clemson, and Clemson has not been a world beater here. They've certainly had some of their issues as well with teams even at home, and this game to me seems pretty weird. I would probably fade everything that's been going down. I would take the points here at plus 17. It's not going to be a play I'm going to probably make unless it gets much higher. If it does move past the 17 mark into 18 type territory, I might draw a line there. But at this point, I would take the points here with Florida State.
Yeah, and token, you got to look at 2 strengths of both of these teams. You have Travis Etienne, who I believe has 900 yards. He has 801 yards and 14 touchdowns to take a lot of pressure off of the freshman Trevor Lawrence. He's got to be a strength right now. He's scoring touchdowns in bunches. Then on the flip side, you have Florida State, who ranks 7th in the nation in run defense. 2 great strengths in this game. What gives?
We'll definitely find out for sure. What I'm going to look forward to in this matchup is how well Florida State can contain Clemson for sure, and see if they can keep it even marginally close. If not, I'm almost leaning towards Clemson at this point. This one I don't have as one of my bets. Clemson, their last 6 conference games are 5-1 against the spread. Seminoles in their last 13 are 2-9-2 against the spread. I don't know. It should be an interesting one. I would lean towards the over as well. But sure, definitely find out what happened tomorrow.
So you like the over in the 50 spot, the 50 burger right there?
Yeah.
See, I think 2 really good defenses in this spot. Like I said, Francois can be exposed, especially by a Clemson defense. And you have, like I said, I think the Florida State defense is going to centralize their game plan around shutting down ATN and making a freshman beat them. Obviously, that's easier said than done, as ATN has run for 14 touchdowns and 800 yards so far in 7 games. So I really think, honestly, at this point, I think Clemson's going to have the ability to win this game comfortably. But when I say comfortably, I really feel like it's in the 10 to 14 spot range here. So I feel like the value's on FSU plus 17, especially having a home game. The crowd's going to be rocking. I don't really feel comfortable with that bet, but I actually have already made that bet with Florida State plus 17. To me, it's going to be a fact of shutting down ATN. I think this is what they're going to shut down ATN. They're going to shut down, or they're going to force Trevor Lawrence to beat them, and I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be just good enough to beat them, but not good enough to cover a large number like 17 in that spot.
So you think it might be close even into the fourth quarter?
Yeah, I think it could be close. I think it's a pull-away game, really. I think it's a 7-point game, flipping back and forth, 7 to 10-point game. Florida State never really actually gets competitive in terms of tying the game or being ahead, but I think they stay within that number. I just think talent-wise, Clemson's too good. Clemson's had Florida State's number, and as much as I'm starting to like what I see out of Taggart's progression, this is a tough one, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, we've got a pick on that one. Let's talk about another big game in the 9 o'clock slot. And we just talked about Big Ten football. And Wisconsin, currently sitting at number 19, is playing Northwestern, as I like to call them, the Fighting Fitzgeralds.
I remember that one, yeah.
Yep. The line opened up Wisconsin -6 on the road, now down to Wisconsin -4.5. Live total is 53 at this point. What do you take from this? I mean, you have Wisconsin, who, if you're a better, which if you're listening to the show, you probably are.
I would hope so.
How do you trust this Wisconsin team?
Pretty tough to do. It's a good question. They've been very up and down for a team that is not usually at all up and down. In fact, it's one of the few teams you feel like you can count on from year to year, and you know what you're going to see on both sides of the ball. And the continuity is amazing that they get at that university. But this year, as you said, it hasn't been the case. I think part of the issue, though, for me with Wisconsin is I think we've seen a rise in the quality of the Big Ten teams at the top this year. Certainly, we can make a comment about how some of the teams on the bottom are horrendous, and I won't argue that. But I feel like the teams at the top, with Iowa, Michigan, Ohio State, and even I think you can even still make a good argument for Michigan State being a high quality team there in Penn State.
You can make an argument for Northwestern, the 4-1 in the Big Ten.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's just a lot of really good teams, and it's top end, very heavy, and a very strong conference in that sense. So I feel like Wisconsin's been lost in the shuffle a little bit because they don't have a quarterback that can win you a game, and they're not able to throttle somebody and dominate like some of these other teams that we mentioned, which have really dominated a lot of games. And Wisconsin just doesn't have that with a quarterback. I mean, he's played there a lot of years, and that's all good and well, and we know how much that can help, but if you don't have the actual skill set to dominate or be a great quarterback, which I don't think Hornibrook has, unfortunately, but it's just you're going to be left with being able to only run the ball for the most part and kind of dink and dunk your way down the field, and that's sometimes not enough on some of these games. So that's my take based on the question that you asked in that regard. In regards to the game, wow, what a tough spot, what a tough game. I'm surprised the total's moved up so much as it has. I know it opened around 50 and a half, and that, again, line seemed really good to me. I didn't have any feeling yay or nay on that one. Surprised it moved up instead of moving down. This seemed like a game where it would move down most likely, as Northwestern has been a notorious slow starter throughout this year, and they haven't been able to score very much in first halves. But, you know, in this one, to me, it looks like a close grind kind of game. I'm just not sure I'm convinced that Northwestern can do enough on offense against a significantly better defense than they've seen in some of these games the last few weeks. So and they're certainly a lot better than Nebraska and Rutgers, and I think that'll be the telling thing in this game. So I'm going to take, if I had to, the old gun to the head type game. I would lay the points here with Wisconsin. I'm not terribly confident in it, but I just don't think Northwestern has enough resources on offense and will be able to do enough to score and cover the spread here.
Interesting take on that. I actually think Wisconsin kind of proves himself to be more of a dominant team that they have shown more of lately. I believe they win this game by 2 scores, even. In fact,
really,
wow. This one I'm going to take to the window. I believe their offense is going to surprise some people and show some weaknesses on the Northwestern defense, and they win this game 31-21.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, actually, I think we're in unanimous agreement on this one as far as laying the points with Wisconsin. I think they know what's at stake here at this point. You know, being 3-1 in the Big Ten, obviously, not feeling too down about their status still left. As far as competing for the Big Ten West, I like Jonathan Taylor, and I believe that even if Northwestern game plans to stop him, I just don't think you can. At this point, you got a mishmash. We've talked about it every week when we talk about Northwestern. They got a mishmash in the backfield. Clayton Thorson's an average quarterback. I mean, look at last week, 17-34, 150 against Rutgers. I'm not sure I'm crazy about it.
No, not going to get it done against a real team for sure.
Yeah. So right now, while I love the Fighting Fitzgeralds, at 4.5 points, I think this game finishes. I think this game finishes somewhere around, like, literally close to that total, but I think Wisconsin covers 27-21, 24-17, something real close to that total. I think this game will be a dogfight, but I think ultimately talent will prevail, and and what's the word I'm looking for? Expertise, or experience will prevail. Hornibrook, yes, he's been there a long time. I like the senior. I like, Paul Christ. I like what Wisconsin can do against this team, but again, I think it'll be very
It's
close.
just a game we almost never see Wisconsin lose in a spot
Yeah, that's
like
what I'm
this.
saying. Yeah, that's a good point.
It really is. They have
It's
that
a spot where
pedigree
you're like,
almost,
I don't
yeah.
really feel great about Wisconsin, and then the spots where you feel fantastic, BYU, spots like that,
Yeah.
they get beat. So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we're all in a unanimous agreement, which really never happens on this program.
Very
but-
rare. Very rare. We had one last week, and I don't think there was one even before that. So this is pretty cool. Good stuff.
So
It's like an albatross.
there you go. Yeah. Speaking of, just quick side note. I know we're all golf fans, and I don't want to get too far off a tangent. The price point for Phil vs. Tigers come out, and they're thinking about a 1995 pay-per-view. Yay or nay? Are you going to buy that?
Yes, actually, I just discussed this coming in to do the podcast today. I'm going to be gone visiting some friends for Thanksgiving, which is they were nice enough to invite me there. And yeah, we are going to buy.
Friends.
I know, right? What a big shocker. Yeah. People with stats and weird numbers in their sheet.
It was
are
a
not
charity
supposed to-
case.
yeah.
He's bluffing us.
Kid, can we find most down on his luck? Anyways, go ahead.
I deserve it. No, I saw that, and I'd already planned on. I mean, there's going to be a few people, so we'll all chip in. But I'm actually looking forward.
Hey, big spender.
Well, I didn't know how much it was going to be. That was part of the thing.
People were coming out $60.
Yeah, we'd been discussing how much it would be and what we'd be willing to spend, and I was willing to go much higher than that.
Right.
But the only thing that a couple of people, and this will make at least you guys a little bit happy, is the people that I'm going to be watching it with are going to be hardcore on making prop bets and just having all kinds of action on this thing. So
Degens.
I think
Sounds like Smashers 2.0.
Yeah, Schmasters. Yeah, I don't think Tony Johnson knows about the Schmasters.
I don't know what that is.
We'll have to get him in that as well. So
Fair enough.
Yeah, he would enjoy that for sure.
would you buy the 1995 pay-per-view?
I would. I usually don't go Black Friday shopping, so it's relevant to me for that. So
Fair enough.
I'd probably buy it. I mean, I would love to go see it in person, but I heard that's going to be
Those tickets will be more than
impossible.
1995.
No, I heard it's not going to be
They're
open
shutting
to
it
the
down?
public. Yeah.
They won't even let people.
Oh, really? Shutting Shadow Creek
It'll
down?
just be media. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, see
Very
that?
unfortunate. I
Yeah,
know.
that's kind of stinks.
I thought that was a really, really bad move on their behalf. I'm with you. I can't believe
They could have sold tickets for $100 a pop and
There it is.
probably sold out.
That would have been cheap.
Yeah, exactly. It would have been great, and you could have had a nice, good golf, loyal following. I'm surprised they didn't do that. But,
Right, absolutely. Yeah, everybody who's listening now is like, we don't give a fuck about golf right now. Let's go.
That's probably.
But anyways, like I said, a little tangent. I was more curious, but
Yeah.
all right, back to it. We'll go down a peg and talk about your boys up in Ypsilanti, Eastern Michigan. They're bringing in the armed forces this week, and Army is traveling in. Right now, it's currently a pick'em at this spot. Eastern Michigan opened up as a favorite. Total right now 47.5. You got a 4-4 Eastern Michigan team. Like I said last week, we know them for beating Purdue. Now we even know them more for beating Purdue after Purdue beat Ohio State. You have an Army team who, if they can get the triple option running, they're probably pretty much as dangerous as almost anybody in the NCAA football.
Incredible.
So, well, at this point, legitimately at a pick'em, what gives?
I think Army prevails in this one. I think the Eagles of Eastern Michigan slightly downfall. I actually like the under in the spot, too. I think the weather being a little factor in this, supposed to be a little windy, a little breezy. Both teams play pretty good defense. Believe this total comes down to about 34 total. I believe 24 or 21 to 14, something around that.
That's crazy considering last year was 28-27. Army was the benefactor. But, I mean, this line sits right around the same thing. Close game. Anybody's ball, last team to have possession.
For sure. Well, I don't have a play in this game, but just for some fun, I'll play the devil's advocate here. Eastern Michigan's schedule has been bonkers this year, and I like how they've gone out and played people, and it's almost all been on the road. So they have games that they played at Purdue. They have a game at San Diego State, which is really way out there. And already they have played in conference some very good teams. They've played Northern Illinois.
They played Buffalo.
And Western Michigan. And Toledo is the other one. So these guys have been beyond tested. Obviously, as you correctly said, this is a very different test. and a team that's very hard to prepare for, because not only is it hard to prepare for the triple option, but these guys run it beautifully, and they are a very good team. There's no doubt about it. We can clearly see that traveling to Norman, Oklahoma, and that was an absolute dogfight that Oklahoma got lucky to survive in overtime. So these guys are really, really good. With all that said, though, I like how battle-tested Eastern Michigan is, and I like how this is a team that fights really hard. They have not been blown out of any game this year. Every game has been close. I know they have like 3 losses that are within 3 points. It's a dogfight type of team. So just for the fun's sake, I'll take Eastern Michigan in this one, but. I mean, I don't have a play, but I think it'll be a very close game. Maybe not a game you want to sit there and watch the whole thing. It might be a little bit slow and not the most exciting. But I'll go ahead and take EMU here.
All right. Well, so he's got Army, he's got EMU.
Yes.
Ooh, I don't have an official play here, but it always feels like treason going against the armed forces. So I'll take the Black Knights with their 4-1 against the spread last 5 road games. 5-1 against the spread last 6 overall games, which is included with that Oklahoma test that they had. Eastern Michigan's no slouch, but like I said, ball bounces one way or the other. I can't commit treason to my country. I'll take Army in this one. Let's see what else we got going on in these 9 o'clock hours. I mean, 9 o'clock's usually. The games that, it's 12 o'clock on the East Coast, you're just waking up, there's it's usually a lot of Big Ten, and that's where we're going to stay, right here. Purdue, Michigan State, obviously everybody has in their mindset, bettors alike, Purdue, 29-point home victory against the Ohio State University, and then you have Michigan State. Again, we talk about a team like Wisconsin. When they're supposed to win, they seem to kind of let down, and when they aren't supposed to win, they seem to kind of be the giant slayer. Right now, they are a 1-point home favorite against Purdue. This seems like a spot in my mind, and I don't know if this is a square play or a sharp play. This seems like a spot in my mind. I mean, the square notion would be, why is Purdue a dog in this spot? But Michigan State, I'll just lay my pick out there right now. I'm betting Michigan State right now, minus the 1. I've already bet it.
Are you concerned that Lewerke looks like he's a question mark to doubtful in this game, the starting quarterback for Michigan State?
It's a possibility at this point, but at the same time, I think that L.J. Scott, if he's back and he's 100%, I think he can pace the game, keep it low. The only thing that really makes me feel skeptical on that is if I had the total, if I had the over. I feel like Michigan State would be looking to, at this spot, run the ball, control the clock, keep it away from Purdue. Because, like you said, David Blau is, or how do you say that? Blau, however you say that.
I think it's Blau, yeah.
Blau,
you got it.
Blau to Moore, that's got to be Michigan State's #1 game plan shutdown at this point. Because Rondale Moore is amazing.
Incredible. It's been really fun to watch a true freshman blossom like this and take it like he does. He's a very nonchalant, easygoing, non-celebratory kind of guy. It's kind of nice to see every once in a while a guy that seems to really get it and knows he's in for the long haul, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. But you brought up, I think, a really good point in regards to you would be concerned if you had an over in this game. Well, yes, that is exactly where I'm at. So I have the under because that is a big concern to me. And
total 48 right now?
Yes.
Is that where you caught it?
I caught it in the midst of it moving down. So I'd opened at 50.5 or 51. I got it at 50, exactly. So, I feel really good about this for a variety of reasons. I almost didn't bet it because I was concerned about the Lewerke situation. I wanted to know if he was going to play, being probably one of the more important players in this game. But then I started to think about it really, and I don't think it matters a ton in the sense of being on a total here. This one, I think, writes itself pretty well. So Michigan State perennially does really, really well in these games, especially when you have a high-flying type of team that can bring it to you and has in times past. But this is what D'Antonio is great at, and this is what these guys have always been good at, is being stout defensively and not allowing big plays. That's like rule number 1, it seems, at Michigan State, is to not allow the big play. Mm-hmm. And they're usually incredibly good at it. They've had some mistakes, certainly this year. I'm not saying this team is the best one we've seen. And certainly Token can comment more on that. He knows his team very well. But this is one of those where I really like the spot. Purdue coming down off this huge win. I can't see them being flying on all cylinders like they have in weeks past. I'm not convinced about David Blau. He's got a weak arm. He's never been a great quarterback. His legs are probably his best asset, and you're not going to get around the end very often against this Michigan State defense. So I think this one will be close and slow and really bad in the sense of 4 points wise. Certainly I like both teams, but I'm liking the under here. Pretty confident with it. In fact, if you want to head on over to vegassquares.com, in the betting for an edge section, you will find that in the Power 5 picks this week, this will be your pick in the Big Ten, the Purdue-Michigan State under.
Purdue's.
Yeah, I actually do like the under at the spot as well. I believe both defensive games are pretty strong. They slow down both offenses. This game, I think it comes way under. I think 21-17 in the final, so not even really a sweat. Whoever wins probably kicks a field goal towards the end to kind of ensure that they win.
Well, usually at the end of the game, when you have more points than the other team, you I knew what you meant, dude.
To cushion it, where they have to face pressure for a touchdown or lose. So
fair enough. All right. Well, we're on a little bit of everything there. You've got the total. I've got you both have the total on that one. You like the under, and I like Michigan State just to win the game in a squeaker. All right, let's go to the SEC here and talk about Vanderbilt and Arkansas. And I know initially thoughts are, whoa, what the hell? These two teams virtually are irrelevant, even though Vanderbilt got off to a little bit of a hot start this year. But this game actually provides pretty good action, in my opinion, as far as betting goes. Arkansas opened up as a 2.5-point favorite and got jammed. They are now actually a 1.5-point dog, total 53.5 on the line. What are your initial thoughts, basically, on Vanderbilt, Arkansas as a little bit of a toilet bowl in the SEC, but really I think with the offenses could provide some fun?
My quick take is I don't see a lot of fun, actually, at all. I'm in disagreement of the fun. Yeah, not a whole lot. I'm not.
Well, maybe watching this as one of those fans might not be fun, but.
Certainly. Yes, I guess if I was a fan of one of those two teams, I might have to keep it on TV just for posterity. But besides that, I mean, I don't know. This is kind of a nasty fest. We have two teams that are going different places than they usually are on offense, and that kind of concerns me. Arkansas is clearly changing away from the Brett Bielema slug it out, run system to spread them out,
right.
Chad Morris thing, and that's going to take some time, and it's been ugly, and it's not surprising there. And Vandy with Shermer at quarterback has really also altered their offensive identity, and they're throwing the ball a lot more as well. And they've had some issues recently being able to score points just because they have not been able to score in the red zone. It's been one of those deals where they're not running the ball well enough, and teams sort of understand that. And so not having to take the run away and being able to play secondary type of defense on a short field in the red zone has proven to be rough for Vandy. In fact, I think they could have put Florida away last week. If they could have just scored. They had the ball late in the third quarter and just could not put points on the board on their own on the Florida 25-yard line. And that ended up being the killer for them. So not too excited about this one. The line movement was really weird. I had written that on my paper, too. That was about the only good thing I could say, and you already said it about the line movement confused me because I'm not sure I really like either side here. I don't really understand what it is. I think Vandy certainly is the better team. I don't think there's any question about that, and the movement would show that. But Arkansas has certainly played better. They probably should have beaten Ole Miss a couple weeks ago on a neutral site there in Little Rock, and then took Tulsa with ease. Well, Tulsa's a weak team, but they're playing better themselves. I don't know. I mean, I don't have an opinion. Gun to the head pick is just kind of weird because it's such a close, game. Guess I would probably take the better team and take Vandy, but I have really nothing more to add.
Really, I thought this would be right up your alley.
I wish. Yeah, sometimes these janky, weird games are right there, but this one, I don't know.
All right, well, that was a swing and a miss on that one on Tony Johnson. I thought this game would be, he'd be salivating in the mouth of this game. Tell me why this game is exciting.
A lot of high-power offenses.
Because I'll be drunk by 12, or I'll be drunk by 9 Eastern, or 9 Pacific.
No, this one should be interesting squeaker, kind of. I think both teams can put up reasonable points, and I like the over in this spot, actually. I think this total you can see climb and get it early while you can. Also lean towards Arkansas. I believe they win this game 31-27.
Yeah, I'm right with you. I think it's a close game. I think the line may have been right when Arkansas opened it, or excuse me, when Vegas opened Arkansas, the 2.5-point favorite. It always seems that this line seems like a trap to me because of the way it's been pushed. The public money or the initial money has gone on the spot that you're talking about. Hey, look, we've moved the line a whole 3.5 points at this point in favor of the team that we know more about. As far as positive success, I think, like you said, Brett Bielema's offense is virtually non-existent here anymore in Arkansas at this point. And I believe that when you say Vanderbilt's the better team, I don't know. I mean, maybe the problem is Arkansas has now got a freshman at quarterback that it could be a question mark. But I believe that
new running back too. Although Rakeem Boyd had a very good game against Tulsa last week, so who knows? But sorry, go on.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I think that obviously on the road, Vanderbilt right now this year is averaging 12 points per game.
Yeah, they've been bad.
Against Arkansas being at home, averaging 31 points a game. Both teams' defenses are playing Matador style, which doesn't really worry me about that unless I was trying to pick a total. I think this game, like you said, I think this game is literally 27-23 or 24-20, something along those lines where it's just enough offense for Arkansas to get the win, and I really believe now you got to feel good about it if you're an Arkansas backer because it opened up as you were the favorite, and now you can get plus money on them actually winning outright. So
yeah,
if you like Arkansas, which I do initially, again, it's just a lean right now. I don't know how I'll feel Saturday by the time this comes available or the game starts. But even then, that's the beauty of in-play, too. You can kind of see how the first couple of minutes are going in this game.
And lean one way or the other.
And I mean, this could be a game where I've seen this happen before, not very often, where Vegas liked a team. I mean, like they put Arkansas out 2.5-point favorites. They let the line move with the betting trend, and immediately when the in-play opened up, it went right back to one of the initial opening lines.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's going to happen here, but if it does, it's going to make me feel really good about having Arkansas. You want to kind of be where Vegas's eyes are, or excuse me, the Vegas's brain is, and that feels like this spot. I could be way off base on this, but I feel like you put your square hat on. Hey, why is Arkansas the favorite in this spot? It's simply, I guess you could say, simply the 3-point advantage and the home field advantage in that spot. But I think Arkansas actually it may not be the better team on paper, like you're saying, but I think they're playing better football right now. So, and that's not a disrespect to Vanderbilt in the way they played Florida.
Yeah, that was impressive.
I think Florida is not as good as the number 9 team in the nation.
Really? Oh, okay. Oh,
but we'll get there.
Yeah, that's something else entirely. Okay, good.
We'll get there.
Excellent.
We'll get there. So, all right. Well, this was the last one I saw. Texas Tech and Iowa State of the 9:00 games. This one could be fun. I mean, Texas Tech. 5-2 right now, 5-2 against the spread. You got Iowa State 3-3, 4-2 against the spread. Iowa State's that team, man. They're another one. They're like they can hang with you, they can play with you, they can beat you, they smash you in the mouth if they need to. And they are currently a 5.5-point home favorite. Total 57 in this spot. Who we got playing for? Is Bauman back? Bauman going to play this week?
Yes, he came back last week and
right.
played very well, and he is going to continue on. I don't think they're going to go back to McLean Carter, despite the fact I think he's healthy now. Is the original starter back in the Ole Miss game. It appears that Bauman has played so well, even as a freshman. I think they're just going to stick with him.
Yeah, 2,000 yards, 14 touchdowns.
Yeah, they should. Yeah, for sure. But, anyways, adding on to this game, it's interesting you bring up the quarterback because I think the quarterback change in Iowa State, although it was unintentional based on an injury, has been the biggest outlier for Iowa State being a great team. And that's Brock Purdy just showing up and being awesome. Both as a runner and as a passer, he is making great decisions and doesn't seem to, again, have the greatest arm, hence probably why he wasn't heavily recruited and why he was a backup in the first place. But really loved how well he's played, especially against two legit teams, Oklahoma State and West Virginia. I mean, Oklahoma State's, I know, rebuilding in a little bit of a down year, but these are two teams that are still pretty good, and he looked lights out. So I'm just going to continue the trend. I'm not going to look too far past this I love what Iowa State's doing. I love Matt Campbell and his prep, especially, again, coming off of a bye. They had that big win at home against West Virginia, but I think having this week buffer helps a little bit too. I like that, and I'm absolutely going all out here on Iowa State. That's another pick that we'll see on the Finding an Edge in the Power 5 on the Vegas Squares website, and that is our Big 12 pick. We'll have Iowa State. I got it at 4. I guess it's risen up. That's not a surprise. This is, I think, the right side on this one.
Yeah, I agree with that. I believe public as well as sharp money is going to come in Iowa State, and you're going to see that line maybe move maybe another point or so. I don't think it will go right up to that key number, but maybe pretty close. And I think they still cover that. I think they win by about 2 scores. I believe they win 30-20 or so.
Wow. All right. Well,
Yeah, fade it.
You may have
get it done.
You may have convinced me. I'm not sure. I don't know, but it's just I don't know. When like you said, when you've got the coach talking about you, like you talk about Brock Purdy, Kingsbury over at Texas Tech has been talking about him nonstop all week.
He has. I've seen some of his interviews. He is all about him too. It's kind of interesting.
I don't know. I mean, the thing is how do you fade this? I mean, you have Iowa State in the last 2 games in this series has won by an average of 37 points. That's just amazing to me. They're also 6-0 in October the last 2 seasons, 4 wins over top 25 opponents, and they are only one of 7 teams in the nation still perfect in the red zone, which is hard to do. I don't care who you are. That's hard to do.
That's very impressive stat there. I mean,
I don't think they're going to be winning this game by 37 points. Nor do I really know where this total is going to, or excuse me, where this score is going to fall. I actually will probably think it's probably going to be 35-28, somewhere along those lines. So that leads me towards Ohio State, but I'm going to just take Iowa State. I'm actually going to take the over 57 in this spot.
Okay.
I think we get 60+ points in this game. It's a shootout. I'll lay with you guys in Iowa State. The money and the action right now is pretty much dead 50-50. So I'll ride the total. I'll lean on the total in that spot. So that's my theory on this game. A game I didn't have on the docket, but I know that since I'm trying to find a game that I know Tony Johnson is salivating over, I thought maybe this one could be it, and that's North Carolina at Virginia.
I do, yes.
Yes, see, I got one.
Well done. Wow, I like how you plucked one.
I thought you were going to go a little further north than that, but
yeah, I didn't really know where you were going to go. It could have been really anything.
Well, where else was I going to have? Bethune-Cookman at Nebraska?
No, CMU.
How are you playing Bethune-Cookman? I don't care. You're a Big Ten team.
Makeup game.
Is it a makeup game?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when they lost the game against Akron. This is the one. This should be their bye.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But still, Bethune-Cookman?
As you said last week, maybe this is what they had. This is the only choice they had. They needed to make sure they got
I'm curious.
to 12.
We should get the crack
play
research staff to see.
what's in front of you.
Well, this wasn't in front of them. They put this in front of them. They put this in front of them. I think the bye week might have been better for Nebraska. Then what happens if you got a 4-4 Bethune-Cookman team? What if they come out and only lose by 14 points?
Not good.
Wouldn't the bye week have been better for Nebraska?
Not if they can get to a bowl. If this gets them to 6 at some point, I think that's the whole goal.
They've got to go. They got to run the table to get to 6.
I'm not saying it's likely. I'm just saying that I believe that
There's a chance. Saying there's a chance.
All right, if Scott Frost gets this team to a bowl game, is he coach of the year?
After going 0-6, he's talk about it.
He's in the discussion early on. That's for sure. That's for sure, because this team looked dead and gone for the first 2 or 3 weeks. But as we've been talking about, they certainly have been playing better. But getting on to the North Carolina-Virginia game. Love this game. Huge fan of this game.
Nailed it.
Yes, so this is definitely a wheelhouse game, and it just worked out really well just because I was a huge fan. I was hoping this is one of those I was looking at. I know I get really weird and nerdy about looking at it before they open up, and I was really, really hoping that it would be right near that 10 range because I wanted to have UNC in this game, but and Virginia coming off a big win, I was like, okay, this is perfect. And so it didn't do as well as I wanted. I think it opened at like 9 or 9.5, but I ended up getting it 9.5. So I'm pleased about that. And yes, so long story short, I do like North Carolina. A couple of good reasons for this. They're playing a lot better offensively. They seem to have some identity now more with clear-cut starters, both that quarterback, running back, and the receiving corps has been improved.
Okay.
Ratliff Williams has finally come around. He's been a guy that hasn't been able to run routes really well, and that's been the thing that Larry Fedora has talked about. And so what they've done, I think, to simplify it almost for him is give him a smaller tree to run. And so I think that simplification is being able to push the ball down the field a little bit better, and I really like what they've done. I mean, they probably should have been able to beat Syracuse last week. That was a kind of a weird end and finish to that game, but clearly a game they probably should have won, which was on the road. They played Virginia Tech great as well 2 weeks before that, and so I like where things are heading. And Virginia, coming off of the biggest win of Bronco Mendenhall's tenure by far.
Miami.
Yeah, this was a big one for them. I think this really kind of cemented them in their full rebound here as a football team, and I just this is a classic regression point. The only thing that I'm concerned about is North Carolina has one of the worst rush defenses, if not maybe the worst in the ACC. They give up more than 4.7 yards per carry, and their one of their starting defensive tackles looks like he's going to be out as well. So he's one of the 4-star guys they got a couple years ago. I can't remember his name, but anyways, should be one of the better ones on the line. So I'm concerned about that. Certainly that's something, and Virginia runs the ball extremely well. I think this is going to be one of those classic, really close games. And in a classic, really close game, you can get 9.5 on a team that seems to be pretty motivated. That's 1-5 and really is trying to right this thing. I want the 9.5, so I'm on UNC here.
Yeah, I don't really have a play on this game. So.
Who would want this?
He says, "Yeah, sounds good."
Yeah,
Fair enough. I mean,
I probably lean towards the under in this spot. I think.
fair. I mean, you're spot on with the situation here. You said the under.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the under is 4-0 in these teams' last 4 meetings. The road team is 4-0 in the last 4 meetings against the spread. So that favors, obviously, your Tar Heels. The Tar Heels themselves, last 4 meetings in Charlottesville are 4-0 against the spread. So it realistically, everything favors exactly what you're talking about. You know, his in-depth analysis on the under. I mean, he nailed it. Nailed it. I don't have a play on this game either, but I knew that this game would be in your wheelhouse, so it sounds good. So I'll sprinkle a $2 bet for you on North Carolina. I'll just throw a score out there because everybody knows that the what we're waiting on is an exact score prediction.
Oh yeah, I'm waiting.
26-21.
Ooh, that
6.
I was about to say 27-20. So
Well,
right around the same wheelhouse.
So
And that's Virginia winning? Is that
Virginia winning, North Carolina keeping it close.
Got it.
I think Virginia's the better team. But like you said, classic close game. I mean, what do you define as close games? I mean, most people define them on the key numbers 3, 7, 10, 14. I still define anything 10 and less conditionally constitutes a close game to me.
And sometimes even a 14-point, final
Backdoor,
score or whatever.
yeah.
It's a late pick 6 or something like that. You just have to look into it. That's why I've also harped on, if you have any extra time and you're interested in the game, with some of the people listening out there, is looking at the previous play-by-plays and just perusing it quickly. I'm not saying you have to go in depth or whatever. And looking and seeing how the scoring happened and how the flow of the game was, it can really, really help in identifying some of these teams and evaluating.
Fair enough. That's the key thing, is a lot of people don't want to take the time to look up things like that.
Yeah, that's true. Right.
That's where the Vegas Squares was born.
Fair enough.
I ever tell you how that was born?
No, I've actually.
I know he knows. Well, that's how we started the podcast. I think it was an NFL weekend or an NCAA weekend. I bet 14 games, and I went 0-14. I think it was over the course of NCAA and NFL.
Wow.
And I was just like, I feel like such a square. And I'm like, we should do a podcast. It's basically we should do a podcast, and whatever we pick, we should just advertise that you should fade. And eventually I didn't get that far. But basically I said, tail us or fade us, that choice is yours. There was one weekend I went 0-14 with my picks. I think it was over the course of Saturday and Sunday. Which I don't think I've ever done before, and I don't think I've ever done since.
Yeah, it was
so.
slightly a year ago.
Yeah, we're coming up on a year. I think it was November was our first episode.
Yeah, something around there.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's almost unheard of.
Actually, I think it was
It's hard to
towards...
do that.
It's very hard to do that, yeah.
I actually think it was towards middle to end of October.
It might have been. We might be coming. I have
Yeah.
to look at we're 75 episodes in, plus picks and chatters, plus...
Yeah.
We're probably over 100 episodes total, but, I mean, actual episodes that we call episodes are, it's crazy. It's just,
Upper 70s, yeah.
yeah, so, anyways. Well, that would be the ending to the 9 a.m. games.
Got everybody started.
And, yeah, the games are probably about to start. If you're listening on 12 on Sports Radio, they're about to start here in a couple minutes. And gentlemen, anything else you see in the 9 a.m.s? I know we got Wake Forest, Louisville, Bethune-Cookman, Nebraska, which I know we were dying to talk about that one, which we got a little bit in. But Mass, Connecticut, anything you guys like in that? quick. You can have in-depth knowledge, or you can have I don't got nothing. I'll take the under.
Biggest move of the week so far in a total is the Mass Connecticut game, open at 74. I believe it's currently 65.
65 and a half currently.
Yeah. So
wow, that's almost 10 points.
I'm also, as like usual, I'm in the middle of that realm somewhere. I'm in it at 69 and a half.
On the under?
On the under, yes. This one is almost entirely combo weather-related, and also that UMass's quarterback looks to be doubtful to almost out right now. And that would be where the passing attack would come from, and they've struggled running the ball. So that's where that is. I'm not, super excited about it. It was just one of those things I saw that was moving, kind of figured out why it was, and it was just like I jumped on it and figured we'd keep going. And,
no, that's cool. I mean, that's the thing. You got to look at these games because a lot of people just want to hear about or bet the primetime games, and that's like you said. Like I know you, Tony. That's not where you make a lot of your money. A lot of those games are more. If you're a conspiracy theorist, those are the ones that seem to be a little bit more shady or sketchy to you. Which, like I said, if you're a conspiracy theorist, you tend to start seeing things. If you're not, then the games that are closer, more action involved, more handle, more take. When you have these games, I remember when I was following a lot of basketball. I used to bet Long Beach State. I mean, used to make money on Hawaii basketball.
Absolutely.
Because nobody else was paying attention. I lived on the East Coast. These games, it was 1 o'clock in the morning. The game was just starting. And I don't know the exact number, but the handle was virtually probably irrelevant to books and these. And they never really set, I don't know if proper line would be the right word, but they never really felt like they took a play off, it felt like, at the end of the night. And one of the guys who I was initially got into sports betting with told me that that's where he made a lot of his money. He's made a lot of his money.
Unknown games and
the unknown games.
Makes sense.
So Connecticut, Massachusetts, another one like that. So you never really quite know.
That's why a lot of good sports bettors bet the irrelevant sports, kind of like tennis.
Yeah. Golf, tennis,
hockey. Well, hockey's grown,
baseball.
But
those games
it's still very small handle.
There's a lot of handle. Even MMA. You're talking about South Point getting rid of their MMA handle.
Yep.
It's because he came out and said he was losing. They were losing on it.
They were losing. They were a legit big time sports book out here was losing in MMA, and that's why they got rid of it. And it was just nice. And we had talked about before. It was nice to see actually give an honest answer. Wyatt. It was really cool. You don't hear that very often. Like, usually there's some sort of.
You already usually know what the answer is.
Yeah, but it's nice to hear it actually being said. So
I mean that's the thing. We always look for. Not to get too far off because we got more games going, but you always look for when giving interviews for a sports figure. They always get the canned PC answer, and when you finally get one, you're like, oh, that's refreshing.
Yeah, so, agreed.
It is kind of nice. So, all right, well, we wish you well in your 9 o'clock. Your 9 o'clock Pacific, your noon Eastern endeavors. We're going to go ahead and jump into the later slates. Let's start with the noon Pacific games, the 3 o'clock Eastern time games. And actually, this is where I saw, in my opinion, the biggest slate of interesting games, both as a fan, as a TV viewer, and as a bettor. So I don't want to waste any time getting into this. And let's start with TCU and Kansas, a game where at the beginning of the year, if you probably handicapped this as a key game, you're like, I don't care, give me TCU and a laugher. But right now, the line's still 14, over-under's 49, but a lot of people probably sit here and believe Kansas is a legitimate threat to get to that number.
They could be. This is one of those I did not look at very closely. Both of these teams are. TCU is so hard to read right now because they're going so far in the negative direction. You've never really seen that on a Gary Patterson team. I know they had a really rough year like 6 or 7 years ago. I can't remember where they won like 4 or 5 games. But other than that, he's had winning seasons and bowl appearances and just really, really good teams. So it's really weird. They're not covering spreads. They're not really winning games. I don't know what to say. I don't like the quarterback situation. I don't like how the running backs keep fumbling. I really like a whole lot in this team. I like how they're using Cavante Turpin, good punt returner, kick returner, a lot more on offense. And he's really good. He's actually one of the very lone bright spots on this team offensively. But besides all that, that's just kind of general thoughts on the team, itself. I don't really have anything to say for the game. The line, to me, seems pretty much how it should be. You would think, as you correctly said, I think if TCU was flying like they normally are and they have 1 or 2 losses, that they're going to be a 20-plus point favorite here. You're going to have to try to figure out whether they can cover something big against a KU team that's playing better. They got blindsided last week. I think they were expecting Jet Duffy to play, and then they got Alan Bauman after a week and a half or 2 weeks from a collapsed lung, which nobody expected him to play. Even one of the big beat writers I follow for Texas Tech and the Lubbock News, he didn't think he was going to play either a day before. He's pretty good, so it was very surprising. I think they got caught a little bit off guard, and that was part of the problem with that game, preparing for a running quarterback versus a passing guy. But I don't have much here. KU has played well for the most part, especially on defense this year. But and as things blow up, sometimes it can be offensively. Their best player is a freshman, true freshman running back, Puka Williams, who's been excellent. But that's what TCU does well. They stop the run well. They float the ball really well. Who really knows? I don't have much here. I hope somebody else can enlighten me because I really have no clue how this one's going to go.
Yeah, this one is one that I don't have any play on. I think Kansas is a smarter play, but I ain't smart, so I would lean towards TCU. So,
well, you look at it, like I said, as a square situation, taking everything just at face value, you say TCU is the far better team, which I don't doubt that. That's 100% accurate. And TCU's never lost to Kansas since joining the Big 12 in 2012. They did beat Kansas last year 43-0 in Fort Worth, but if you look deeper, the past 5 times they've played, those 5 games have been decided by a total of 35 points, which is an average of 7 points a game, which to me leads me to believe that Kansas has the ability to know something about TCU that keeps them in games and close, because considering Kansas the last 6 years has been virtually a doormat in the Big 12, and they still kind of are. The thing I jump out here, and it's probably the difference in opponents right now as far as out of conference, but Kansas is plus 14 in turnover differential, and TCU is minus 10. That is a huge jump. It's not going to be enough to get it done against TCU, even though I'll probably sprinkle a little bit of the money line, but I'm going to take Kansas with the 14 here.
And you're going to bet the KU money line as well?
I'm going to sprinkle a little bit on it.
Nice.
14, it probably, I haven't bet it yet, but I figured probably be somewhere around plus 600-700, I would imagine. Maybe even more.
Maybe, that seems a little high, I think.
You think it'd be in the 4 or 5s?
Yes.
I was thinking 450 or something around there. I'll research
We'll get the crack research staff on that. But,
Well, we discuss the next game on the slate. I'll research that.
Fair enough. All right, next game on the slate, we have Colorado at Oregon State. Oregon State at Colorado. Right now, Colorado's a big number, 24. Live line, 62.5 on the total. This is another one I thought would be right up Tony Johnson's alley, especially you like a lot of things about Colorado, including their star. Was he a sophomore? That Lavishka?
Chenault, sophomore, yeah.
Sophomore Chenault. Mm-hmm. This is a big number. And we just talked about, the difference in teams having to lay a big number is always kind of tough, especially we have a Colorado team who's 5-2, 3-0 at home, 5-2 against the spread, 2-1 at home against the spread, against an Oregon State who is basically the Kansas of the Pac-12, maybe even worse.
Yeah, I actually think they're definitely worse. This was one of the games I liked last week when I took an over, and the only reason it didn't cover was because Oregon State was that bad, unfortunately, against Cal. I expected Cal to score pretty easily, but Oregon State didn't, and they were pretty healthy coming into that game. Now they lost to another guy since that, but surprised at how much of a disaster Oregon State is. Just goes to show you just how badly that program's been run into the ground. And I think this new coaching staff is just, again, trying to struggle just to keep their head above water. And this is a game where it's going to be tough to do. Chenault is a question mark again. Probably going to be a game-time decision. He didn't play last week. And so that will be important to see, I guess, if you're especially spread betting and, how many points you think Colorado is going to win by. Because I can't fathom at all Oregon State keeping this game, close. It just seems like this is a team that's rising and another team that is, already fallen, I guess, and they're just staying, in the basement. Again, another classic case of just because you're in a big-time conference doesn't mean that you could do anything. You put Oregon State in Conference USA or the American Athletic, and they're not going to win very many games either. It just doesn't matter.
It's crazy to think that,
Yeah, they're that bad, I think. But anyways, all that said, I don't have a play in this one. It's a tough spot because I don't like laying huge points in general. That's just pretty much a big no-no unless, to me, it rings obvious. But I just, can Colorado do enough and dominate enough without potentially their best receiver. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so, but it doesn't cause me to want to take Oregon State, which is a complete dumpster fire. So no idea there. If I had to be on anything, I'd probably be on the under at 62.5 or 63 or whatever it is. If I had to do the old gun to the head pick, if I had to take something. But no play from me, but that's about what I know in this game. Not much.
So, I mean, you see a situation, I'm looking at the injury report, and Chenault is considered day-to-day. Mm-hmm. What's the difference, Token, in day-to-day, the injury designation day-to-day in the NFL versus college football? Because in the NFL, if you're probable, you're basically going. If you're questionable, you're more than likely going. If you're day-to-day, it's pretty much the same as probable, but that might not be the same thing in college football.
College, I believe it's more unlikely that they would play, but as you said, it's still pretty likely that they'll probably play. So I would say it leans towards more questionable than probable.
So it leans more towards questionable, but still more 51-49 that they're going to suit up.
I would say more than that. I would say about 55-45, something around there.
Yeah, I mean, this game being at home probably leans me towards that Chenault's going to suit up at this point, and I mean, not a lot of real trends really favor Oregon State at this point. I mean, 1-8 last 9 against a team with a winning record against the spread. That's not good. 1-5 last 6 road games. 1-7 last 8 road games following it against the spread loss in their previous game. 0-10 straight up following a straight up loss. Not good. And 0-8 against the spread in their last 8 conference games. But 24 is a big number. But every time I seem to think that Oregon State, like you said, can cover it, they get their doors blown in.
It's true.
Jesus,
something like that.
They look something like that. So
roar.
No official play for me. Anything for you, Token?
I think the right play on this one is the under. I mean, Colorado could cover, Oregon State could cover as well. Not at the same time, but
could go either way.
Yeah, it could go either way. Right.
I think the smart play is the under. I believe this total comes out to 30-14, something around that.
All right, fair enough. It's a tough number. I mean, Colorado averaging just around 39 points per game. The question is how much can Oregon State put up? Because that matters for both totals and for covering a large spread such as this. Not 39 points, 34 points per game. I say they get close to 40. My lean is with Oregon State in the 24 points because I think Oregon State could probably get somewhere around 14, 17 points. So, yeah, I don't feel comfortable about it, but again, it's just a lean, not an official play. So, oops, I guess I should probably not turn off the games that we're talking about.
The schedule, the pod schedule.
I literally just lost it. Now where'd it go? All right, here we go.
Plus, it helps you keep track of the time when they start.
That's true. I have that as here as well.
Yeah.
Speaking of big starts, like I said, we've got some big games in this time slot. Which one do you want to go with first? You want to go with game day, or you want to go with Big Ten? You want to go with Iowa, Penn State, or you want to go with Florida, Georgia?
Tony, go ahead, pick that one.
I will take the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, the official designation of what it should be.
So I was a fan of the cocktails. All right. Well, then
I'll Mai Tais, apparently, like you.
I don't know how that came out.
That was way out there. I haven't heard of a Mai Tai in a while.
I don't know.
That was a freaking curveball.
It was. It's like some 65-year-old on a beach. Just, okay, have another Mai Tai.
Mai Tai and a Tom Collins and an Old Fashioned.
There you go, yeah.
Hey, Old Fashions are good.
Hanging out with my grandparents. Anyways, all right, so Florida, Georgia, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, which is probably going to feature a few Mai Tais, Old Fashions, and Tom Collins.
Sure.
Among other things, probably a lot of Fireball. Anyways, let's see. You got Florida, who was in a classic letdown spot between Georgia and LSU when they stepped on the field against Vanderbilt. And you have Georgia, who I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, their last game was against LSU. They had the bye week last week.
Yep.
So we've got two teams that are basically looking to trend upward as they are now, and it's hard to say. This is a tough one. But I'll let you run. I'll let you start.
Yep. So one of the two games I'm significantly anticipating here, and I think, as you said, it's fun because both having won losses and both doing it in relatively dominant fashion. We expected it from Georgia that they would be able to throttle people from the get-go, but Florida, for the most part, I mean that loss early on to Kentucky at home was rough, but since then, besides the Vanderbilt game, they have been really dominant for the most part, and I think even though the LSU game was certainly close at home, I really felt that they had the upper hand in the majority of that game, pretty much the whole way through. They were the better team that day. Certainly being at home helps, but that was an impressive win too. So, anyways, getting back to this game, both teams really, really good in the sense of being able to stop the run, the opposing team's rushing attack, which again is nothing new, probably in this part of the country, but it's probably what has caused this total to be so low the way it is, 51, 52, whatever it currently stands.
Okay.
And so that gives me pause immediately right there because both teams rely on the rushing attack so much, and I still have so many questions on Florida and Felipe Franks, and can he really lead a team, and can he really dominate a game and beat a good defense? Now, getting into the numbers a little bit with Georgia, I was surprised when looking this week about how bad their defensive line has been overall and how they're not getting a lot of pressure on the quarterback. They're, I think, like 90th plus in sacks this year overall in college football. And then if we look at actually getting pressure on a quarterback, they're somewhere in the 60s and 70s in getting a quarterback to move out of the pocket. So that was really concerning to me. I didn't really realize that. Watching some of the games, had certainly seen that they weren't being as disruptive as in years past, but wasn't able to quantify it like that. So interesting in that sense. Again, I'm not leading to some great crescendo here. I wish I was, where I had a play and I was staking a claim. I just seeing both teams being very similar and being very good in about the same ways. I'm simply just going to take the points here, and if we can get it at 7 anywhere, which hopefully that would be the case for wherever anybody's betting this. I'm leaning towards Florida plus 7. I have not actually made the bet yet. But that's at least a thought that I'm having with the game. Unsure of where I'm going to go, but that's where I stand.
Now, you talked about question marks with Felipe Franks, but I mean the question now is are Georgia and Kirby Smart going to force the issue in getting Justin Fields more playing time at this
They should. I hope so. I mean, he seems like the better quarterback to me, having watched as much as I can of Georgia here, and I've read one of their beat writers in Athens is really, really good as well, and he's with the team a lot. And he talks about how Justin Fields just blows up this second-team defense in practice like it's nothing. And watching him play, looks very athletic and really sound. So I agree with you. I'm surprised he hasn't been named the starter yet, to be quite frank. But maybe Kirby's.
Well, I mean, starter might be premature, but more. We talked about this earlier in the year where all three of the top teams at the time, Alabama, Georgia, and Clemson were all using a 2 QB system. Well, it looks like Georgia's the only team left still doing that. So it really, like you said, I mean, sometimes, with the exception of University of Florida, how many years ago with Tebow and League, this isn't really a recipe for success.
Very hard to do.
Yeah,
it's very, very hard to do. I just think the emotional aspect of it with the players, I think it's more than that than anything else, is the coaches have to get everybody to buy in that this is the right thing to do, and then both quarterbacks have to be mentally sound and be able to be okay with this. And I think there's just too many moving parts. That's always been my read on the situation. So I agree with you. I totally agree. I think that there's usually a better option than another one, and to me, Fields is a better option than Fromm. We're not there every day, as you like to say sometimes, so we don't really know. But it seems pretty obvious to me that Fields looks a lot more talented and a guy I would fear much more, especially him being able to run the ball so well. So I don't know. That's my own take.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with any of that knowledge against Justin Fields. I just feel like right now, even though he's only a sophomore, Jake Fromm is still. It's a tough take, but I still think he's the quarterback that gives this team a better chance to win. Even the LSU game was tough. LSU's tough in the Bayou, and the thing is whether it's Fields or whether it's Fromm, does Fields impact the running game? And obviously he does. That's an easy yes. But what I'm saying is that Swift and help me with the other
Holyfield.
Holyfield, yeah, that's Evander's kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. they're the ones who obviously the expectations are high because of what you're replacing.
Yeah.
But they're the ones who haven't really lived up to standard right now.
No, they haven't. It was one of those things I think everyone just assumed, well, Georgia has all these great backs, so the other two guys will come in and it'll be fine. Well, yeah, it shows you how good those two guys were last year.
I mean, they're doing it in the NFL, too.
Yep, for sure. I agree.
I think Jake from State Farm should continue to be the starter.
Okay.
And I think that he's going to look back with last year's kind of the way last year trended. They lost to a team in Auburn last year. They were beaten handedly, and they responded. And they were the best team next to Alabama in college football the rest of the way. And
won a shootout against Oklahoma, amazingly. Too.
Yeah.
Nobody expected that to happen.
So I don't believe, as much as this is all laid on Jake Fromm, I don't believe he's the issue. And I believe they need to stick with consistency right there. They can bring in Fields in spots. But to me, if you're just going to completely go over to Justin Fields at this point, I don't think it's the right move. And that could be a freezing cold take here come the rest of the year, or maybe even next year. But I think Jake Fromm gives you the best chance to win against a Florida team who, like you said, if they can mess up Felipe Franks. I mean, last year they beat him 42-7. Again, the defense isn't there. You lost guys like Roquan Smith, etc. But right now, with a neutral site field and half of your stadium is going to be rocking and rolling for the other team, maybe the True Fresh is not the smart move here at this point.
Okay.
So that all being said, my pick is actually with the points. The current line is 6.5. I believe that Florida will keep it close, but I think UGA and Fromm's will and his experience will keep them ahead on the scoreboard. So I'm taking the Gators with the 6.5, but I think UGA wins this game. I don't see an upset here in this spot.
I actually am seeing an upset in this one. I believe Florida wins this one in a close one. And I also lean towards the over. I believe I am going to do a parlay in this game.
Parlay?
Yeah, I think I'm going to take the Florida money line and parlay it with the over.
Wow. I just don't see these two teams getting to that total with their defenses.
I believe the weakness with the Georgia line brings out Florida to put up some rally points, and they get barely over it, but they do. I believe they win outright 30-27.
Okay, fair enough. The trends would be against you in this one. The under is 5-1 in the last 6 meetings, and the favorite is 7-3 in the last 10 meetings in this spot. So I wish you well in your parlay, sir. But that's going to be a tough one to
I like it. That'll be have a decent payout.
Yeah, it'll have a nice payout. For sure.
I like that.
Yeah,
be aggressive. It's good.
So, all right. Well, that is the game, and that was a lot.
That was. We nailed that thing. We went all over that game. That was good.
Yeah. Well, since we picked that one first, let's go over to Iowa and Penn State.
Okay.
And current line, Penn State 6.5. Which, like at face value, like you said, Iowa's a tough team, one of the more tougher outs in the Big Ten. So, initial thoughts 6.5, 52 is the live total. Initial thoughts would be how is Penn State giving that many points to anybody at this point? But it is at home, so I'll let Token Tony start this one off.
Yeah, this one kind of is a weird line in my mind. I think Iowa's much better than Penn State in my opinion. And even going on the road, I think Iowa's the better team in this spot. I think I love them plus the points. I probably love them in the money line as well. I think there's value in that. I think Iowa just dominates this game. I think, well, according to the spread, I believe they win this game by about 4 in my mind. Like 27-23, something along those.
Nice.
So.
Yeah, my take is pretty quick. I looked at this game for a while. I tried to find something, and I couldn't do it because I think as Token said, especially starting out there, about how good both of these teams are. But I was very surprised at how many points Penn State was favored by. So my initial thought was quickly, okay, well, let's just take the points with Iowa and just be cool about it. But and then I try to follow all these Big Ten teams and what they do in the middle of the week and interviews and things like that. And I just can't get past how solid and excitable and positive everyone seems to be on Penn State. I mean, their season has been turned in upheaval. They basically can't get to the playoff. I know there's a lot of talk about McSorley, having a chance to win the Heisman. He's done with that, and it seems like everything has come crashing down. But yet everyone seems very positive about this, and I don't know. I mean, maybe it's faked out and
maybe it's Franklin.
It's not real. Maybe that's exactly what I was going to say. I think Franklin at the helm really keeps everybody in check and what a perfect guy to be leading a program like this. Just unbelievable. So that's my issue. Well, Iowa is a team that absolutely nobody wants and is playing great and could very well be playing a lot better than Penn State. No question, they're playing better than Penn State.
Sure.
On paper, still, with players on the field, the players themselves, Penn State has better players. So I'm trying to figure out what to do here. So I have no play, although I tried really hard. I mean, I looked at this game in a lot of different angles for a long time. I can't do it. Gun to the head, or if I have to come up with a play, I'm just going to take the points with Iowa because it just seems like the obvious right play, and nothing wrong with that. But I don't know. I just can't
a smart
count,
play, probably.
It is. I just can't count out.
Also
Penn
feels
State.
like a square play.
Right? Yeah. I just can't do it. So I'm going to have no play, but love watching this game. One of those. Don't have to have a bet on it to enjoy it, and that's going to be one of those for me here, certainly.
Fair enough. And I think everything you said. Iowa's the popular team. Iowa's the hot team. Penn State, we talked about Auburn. What do they have left to play for? I mean, it feels like the sky is falling for Penn State, but they seem very, optimistic in the rest of their season. So, I mean, to me at this spot, like you said, I think the talent prevails. And to me, watching this Iowa team over the last few years, while they get the big wins, in the games they're really, even though they're not, even in the games they're really favored or expected to win, they come up flat. And this feels like one of those games. And in the head-to-head meetings, home team, which is right now Penn State, 4-1 against the spread last 5 meetings. The trends favor the under. I say this game's 31-20. Penn State covers the 6.5 points. Penn State obviously wins, kind of puts a dagger in Iowa in that spot. But both teams still can get to the title, if I'm not mistaken. I believe Penn State can still get to the Big Ten title, which would effectively probably not get them in the playoffs.
Certainly going to need some help, obviously. They're going to need another one.
We got to imagine in the Big Ten, if it's not Ohio State and Michigan, the Big Ten will not be represented in the playoff this year.
Yes, I think that's 100% true at this point. I looked at this for a while, too, because I have this large Penn State wager to win the Big Ten, and I've come to that conclusion as well that those seem to be the two teams that are rising enough and have that much, focal public point that I think that's the only chance. And for Penn State's nature, just because they just lost a game more recently and by a lot of points, I think they have to throttle people going forward. I think it has to be clear-cut beyond. Now, if Michigan, who lost very early on, and it was a non-conference
game.
Yeah, even if they win small, especially at Ohio State, really in the last game of the year, which is going to be tough, even if they win these games small and just kind of squeak by, I think it'll be enough as a one-loss.
Their margin for error is fine if they run the table.
I agree.
But even then, I mean, you look at a team, in Ohio State, if they run the table and get into the Big 12 or Big 10 championship, which obviously means they beat Michigan. Mm-hmm. I mean, how do you ignore 30-point loss?
Yeah. And
last year it hurt them.
It did.
They lost to Iowa by 30.
Absolutely,
or close to 30.
And I'm trying to be unbiased here because I have two wagers, on this team, and I'm not exactly a fan of the university at all, not at all in the least. So just kind of one of those weird things. But I'm right with you. I try to be as unbiased as possible. You can't lose by that much, to Purdue. I mean, Purdue is not a complete doormat. I get that, but they're still a mediocre, fine, playing well now, but that's just all they are. And I'm not sure what I would do with that with one loss. No, because it depends on what happens maybe in the SEC and other things like that. But
because we got to imagine it's going to be tough for the Pac-12.
I would assume,
depending on who it is, it's going to be tough for the Big Ten. And if it's not Clemson, I got to imagine it's going to be tough for the ACC.
It would have to be Clemson, I think. I agree with you 100%.
What if it's not? If say Florida State goes ahead and beats them this week, and and then you have, they kind of have one of those classic. Who do they play? They still play Pitt this year, I believe. Or they lose.
College. They still have Boston College too.
Still have Boston College. I mean, say one of these teams gets in, or say one of these teams beats them in the championship game, and they're a 1-loss, 2-loss team.
Right.
Open up the door for
It's going to be tough.
Open up the door for the G5.
Yeah, and I figured that's where you were going with all this.
It wasn't really until about midway through my argument.
Yeah, and
because I think they should be in no matter if they run the table. I think they should be in regardless over a second SEC team. So, anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm just analyzing all this stuff because I think Notre Dame is significantly overrated, but if they go undefeated, they almost have to be in.
Notre Dame, yeah, if they go undefeated, they'll be in.
Yeah, just because, and they try to schedule difficult too. So I realize that schedule doesn't look nearly as bad because they're playing a lot of teams that are down this year, but I think you have to give them a little bit of credit for actually coming up with a tough schedule. So I get it.
Yeah,
I don't think they're going to be
only beating Pitt by 5. That was a tough one.
Yeah, I don't actually think they're going to be undefeated. I think they're going to lose one of these upcoming. But yeah, it's just I don't know. It's one of those spots that I don't really like a whole lot of teams right now at this point, just because we're seeing a lot of issues. I think
we're seeing a lot of parity. Wait, so the NCAA, who doesn't believe in parity, is getting exactly what they don't agree with. Weird shit.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on before, like I said, UCF rant number 2 commences. Kansas State and Oklahoma, another team in the Big 12. Why do you shake your head so much?
I know it's just going to happen. You weren't trying to go down that path, but then you went there.
No, I didn't. I stopped a little bit.
You did stop short of. Yes.
Sprinkled a little on top, though.
Yeah, just a little bit, though. Yeah, mentioned.
Just a little dust for you.
Bye week, and they're still going to get 3 or 4 plugs. That's okay. No problem.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they're going to lose 2 or 3 spots this weekend. You watch. By not playing. And with their backup quarterback beating a team by 27 points. Anyways,
Oklahoma. ECU? Come on. Moving on.
We didn't lose to Purdue by 30 points.
Yes.
Can UCF beat Purdue as stacked as it is? Like lineup versus lineup, ones versus ones? In your mind. You don't have to appease me. On a neutral field. I know they played in Purdue.
My issue, I will answer the question, but my issue with UCF and all of this love is that people are thinking about last year. And we need to be ranking a team this year. This year and this year only.
I said that last year. I said we should have gotten consideration based on our merits that year. They're like, well, no, you're not a powerhouse like Alabama or Ohio State or
they shouldn't
Georgia.
Get that either. I think
they shouldn't, but they do.
That's the problem. I know. Well, I'm not trying to be an advocate
Rant
for anything
number 2
here.
commence.
Yeah, no, no, it's a good question though. No, it is a very good question.
And I'm fine. And I was okay with that because they're like, oh, you need to put together some seasons. I'm like, okay, fine. You run the table 2 years in a row. It's hard to keep somebody.
I don't like that argument that you need to put together seasons. No, I want to look.
I agree with you, but I'm just trying to play along with the G5 or the P5.
What you said about USF is totally right. How is this team ranked?
I agree with you.
They're terrible.
But it's the only thing that benefits UCF right now, so I'm glad they're ranked. I wish Houston was ranked too.
I understand.
And I wish they could tie.
I just I can't understand why USF is ranked. That makes no sense to me.
I agree. It's the Georgia Tech win.
And I think that Central Florida is much worse than people believe they are. Basically because of the fact that this is a very different team than it was last year. Last year the team looks a lot better. They lost a lot of defenders to the draft this last year, and it's showing in their rushing defense. It's showing with how they play.
I agree with you.
So again, I'm not a ball washer of the Power 5 conferences. I'm not a Group of 5 guy. I'm really an independent dude. I really am. I don't give a crap about any of these guys. To me, I don't see a team from the Group of 5 that is significantly head and shoulders above. Like you mentioned in the previous one with Kirk Herbstreit talking up Fresno State. I don't know what he's talking about right there.
Exactly. Fresno State, App State. Yeah. Utah State may have a seat at the table.
Sure, they've looked great, but
they've also lost. I mean, you got to win games.
I don't see a team like there is not a team like Boise had a couple of teams which I wasn't sure that they were that good in years past, but they really had some very good teams. The only one I thought for sure.
But back then it was BCS and it was top 2 teams.
Different.
It's tough, and they got the chance to play.
I understand.
That's the key words. They got the chance to step on the.
Really good.
They were really good, and I'm not saying UCF is anywhere near the Boise State teams because those teams have pros that are littered throughout the NFL right now, and all I'm asking for, and the thing is that I've been arguing with people on Twitter. They're like, Alabama would whitewash them. Yeah, I'm not comparing Alabama to UCF right now. That's a night and day comparison.
24-point line. The head of Westgate Sportsbook, they had to come up with a line if there was a playoff game. He said it'd be 24 right now.
Okay, fair. And I wouldn't know what to take on that spot.
I didn't either.
I think it's realistic. Yeah,
it's a good line. Yeah,
it's fine. But I'm saying with the 4 or potentially talking about an 8, which I don't want to get down that road. But 2 straight years, and again, I agree with you. It shouldn't be multiple year success. Mm-hmm. But when they did it last year, and you're saying the team was far better,
I believe
and they didn't even sniff. And in this
I
year,
didn't agree with that, though. I thought they should have sniffed. I didn't agree that it didn't sniff. That's my issue. Is I thought they should have been ranked higher last year.
but this year, like you said, okay, so let's look in the SEC because that's where the fucking ESPN and the playoff committee love. They do. There's a big contract, I understand
the bias. It's there,
the bias is there. But okay, so look, Alabama runs the table, wins the SEC championship, blah blah blah. That's what we all expect. But you have a Georgia team or even an LSU team. LSU runs the table, wins the rest of their games. Oh, well, I guess they would lose Alabama at that point. But
right.
Let's say they lost to Alabama. I'm hearing reports that a 2-loss LSU team who wouldn't even play in the SEC title game should be in over them. Yeah, granted, on paper, if they played the game 100 times, LSU would probably win that game. But the fact of the matter is you didn't win the games that were on your schedule. And the fact of the matter is from what I understand following UCF, they've made attempts to schedule. And they've made attempts to schedule, and the teams who do not pick up the phone are the teams like Alabama, Ohio State. And I get it. What do you have to gain by playing UCF in the times where their program is high?
That's true.
You win, great. You were supposed to win. Like you said, 24-point line in a playoff game. You were supposed to win that game. If you lose, holy shit, you just lost to a team that basically you've been dick riding and making fun of for the last, let's see, when was January 1st? Almost 11 months ago?
Yeah.
Dude, it is October 26th, 2018. UCF beat Auburn in the Peach Bowl on January 1st. And there are SEC fans we're living rent-free in SEC fans' minds for 11 months.
Yeah.
So, all right, we went way off track. We've got about 30 minutes left in this podcast, and we got a lot of games to cover.
All right.
And one of those being that team, USF and Houston.
We'll be more efficient. Okay.
No, not necessarily. We'll just UCF rant number 2 kind of went off the rails a little bit, but I think it was productive.
It was good. You asked a good question. It's fine, and I don't know who would win that game against Purdue. I would lean Purdue, but who knows?
Fair enough.
Okay.
All right. USF Houston line currently opened up 8, currently 7.5 in favor of the home team, the Cougars. 75 is the live total right now.
It's gone up.
I thought it was 1 million.
It's gone up.
It could be 1 million by the time the game closes, but like you said, how is USF ranked?
I have no idea. I mean,
I hate USF as much as anybody, and but as a UCF fan, I'm happy they're ranked because that makes everything so much sweeter on Black Friday.
It looks a lot better, yeah. And somehow if USF can win this game, that'll make that game look even more interesting, I mean.
Very true. I don't think it's going to happen. This is the closest one. This is like the last one out type of thing. Mm-hmm. I've made pretty much all the bets I'm going to make this week. This is the one that I really think I should make, but I haven't actually pulled the trigger because I'm sort of somehow hoping Houston comes down to like -7, or more real of a better number. I like Houston a lot in this game for, again, a variety of reasons. I brought up last week how they still have scored 41 points or more in every game, and they have played some legit teams. They've played some very illegitimate teams. So it works both ways, I get you that. But dynamic offense that can do it on both sides, great quarterback, great coaching staff. And on defense, they played relatively well as well. They've given up some yards. I realize kind of the in between the 20s sort of NFL deal, but they've been much better. They've been pretty good in the red zone, and that's probably why this total is so high. Is because the defense sort of looks bad because they give a lot of yards, but they don't actually give a lot of points.
Right.
So I like Houston here. I like Houston winning by double digits. And I'm just kind of hoping the line goes back down, but I'm on Houston, very close to actually making the bet, probably going to do so.
Yeah, I think Houston wins by about 10 or so. I believe this total goes over as well. I see it.
Wow.
Yeah, even as high as it is,
Favorite in the over. Get it done.
Yeah.
Square style.
Biggest squares.
Goes all the way up to 3 million. Oh, I believe the final on this game is like 45 to...
Yeah, what does it matter if you're looking for the over?
Yeah, it could be.
Something
45, 35, something around there, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. This is really possible.
All right, well, this is a game where you have to take off your fan hoodie, which I'm not a fan of USF.
You took Memphis that other time, so I'll give you credit there.
Well, like I said, I want to take off my fan hoodie, but at the same time, I really need USF to win this game because Houston and Central Florida don't play each other this year unless they reach the AAC.
That would have been awesome if they had a game though in the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with them not having because they're at this point, Houston's playing very good football.
Scary, yeah, they are. Yeah.
And if they played right now, Mackenzie Milton is injured, and that creates a huge discrepancy between the best UCF team, and like you said last week, Milton didn't play and they got off to a sluggish start, still won by 27. Yes, it was ECU. Well, again, don't want to start UCF rant number 3. We're talking about USF.
Yeah, this is all you, sir.
Yeah, no, you're right. De'Aaron King is just incredible.
A+.
32 touchdowns, responsible for 23 through the air. Like you said, he's got many talented weapons: Stevenson, Lark, Corbin, and is Ed Oliver going to play? He's questionable right now, but even if he doesn't play, I don't think that really hurts Houston as much as everybody's trying to give this guy Oliver credit for. He's big on the defense, but like you said, even with him, their defense is just average right now, giving up 29 points a game throughout the season. I'm going to say that Charlie Strong gets this team ready because I think Blake Barnett right now and Cronkite, I always get that name wrong. Blake Barnett and Cronkite are better than what the team is better than what they've been playing the last few weeks. And like I said, I don't know how they're ranked. I'm glad that they're ranked. I think they're definitely going to cover the 7 or 7.5, depending on where you have the number. I'm hoping they win. I'm not gonna bet the money line, but I'll take the points here in this spot with USF.
They're fighting to prove something.
I mean, like I said, I want to take the fan hoodie off, but right now I think Houston just gives up way too many points to really dominate this game. And USF will say, I will take those points, we'll play you in a shootout, and we'll keep it close. And if the ball bounces the right way, I think USF can win this game. But I'll take 7.5 points in this spot with the USF Bulls. All right, let's move on to... did we talk about Oklahoma? We didn't talk about Oklahoma, did we?
Nope.
Let's talk about Oklahoma. And they seem to be a forgotten team, after losing to Texas. But they're still right in the thick of things in the Big 12. I mean, it's one loss to one more loss for Texas, or a couple losses for Texas, and Oklahoma's the darling of the Big 12 again. Against the spread record, not so great. This game started out 21.5 in favor of the Sooners. Now up to 24.5. Live line 64.5 on the total. Tony Johnson, Kyler Murray and crew.
It's tough to stop, and I'm one of those that sort of feels that Oklahoma is still the best team in this conference, despite the fact they lost head-to-head to Texas. They just seem like the scariest one-loss team that there is really in the whole country, to be honest with you. So the offense is totally crazy and very, very good. Defensively, though, they still do struggle, and they played a much better game against TCU last week. But as we know, TCU has really come down a long way. K-State is always odd and difficult. It helps being at home. I think this is a big thing that this game's at home for these guys, so that certainly helps. I don't have a play here. As you know, I'm a historical Bill Snyder K-State better, and going to maintain that until he retires at some juncture, hopefully soon. But again, no play for me if I have to lean on a side. I'm just going to take a lot of points with K-State because they do really, really well when they get a lot of points. But I mean, if Oklahoma plays 100%, and they are very good. Obviously, they can win by 40-something. But the issues usually come with defense. So I do think that K-State will be able to score some points. And again, if you're getting 25 or 24.5 or whatever it is, and you can score.
Don't forget your boy, your new defensive coordinator.
Oklahoma?
Ruffin McNeil.
Yeah, Ruffin. Yeah, I like Ruffin.
Grimace.
Yeah, he is awesome. But and I'm not saying that they're going to be able to. The problem is I don't think they can shut down K-State all the way. They've been playing a lot better themselves. I was right on that Oklahoma State throttling a couple weeks ago, and I think that was sort of what K-State needed to get things going in the right direction. Again, they're not going to win this game certainly, but
right.
My lean would be covering that big of a spread.
Yeah, I am going to be on the other side in this spot. I think at this point you're looking at Oklahoma with the Big 12, and they're needing sexy wins at this point and big wins, and because they're going to have to keep pace with Texas, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, they're in the same side of the division?
It's all one.
Oh, that's right. The Big 12's all in one. That's right. Are you sure? I thought they had a championship game now.
They do.
It's just the top two teams?
Yep.
Okay, fair enough. That's probably where I need to do some research. But after finally getting rid of Stoops, I think the defense is going to hold up the end of the bargain. I think inability for Kansas State to do things through the air. They can run the ball definitely, but like I said, when you become one-dimensional and that is shut down, I think you got to have a problem. I think this game's 48-10, 48-14, something like that. I think Oklahoma will cover the 24 points, and I think they'll start a roll of winning and just being angry at this point.
Yeah, I don't really have a play on this game. Gun to my head, I lean towards Stoney. Give me the points.
Fair enough. All right, well, let's move on. We've got a couple more games here in the 12 p.m. I'll dive into a little bit of your world, Tony Johnson, and Duke and Pitt. I know you love the Dukies.
Yeah, they've been very good.
2.5-point favorites on the road.
Yeah, they did well last week.
Yeah,
they did. Yeah. So I have another play with Duke involved with Duke, like usual it seems like, and this will be the ACC play that you can find online as well. And we're doing another under as well. So the under, I got it at 46. I don't know if that's still currently the line. I'm not
45.5.
Yeah, that's
fair
the
enough.
line that I have.
So, that's where we stand, and this one is just the typical reasons why. I mean, I hate to keep rehashing things as the weeks go on, but
sometimes the trend stays the same.
It's just the way it is. Duke is an incredibly strong defense. That is clearly the best part of this team, and their rush defense is what's best about them, and that's really what Pittsburgh does on the other side of the ball. Pittsburgh on the flip, as we saw with Notre Dame, is very capable of shutting down a very good offense. Not that Duke is necessarily a great offense, but certainly they are no slouch on defense, and they have a very defensive-minded coach. And so this one is as slugfest as sluggy goes. And so I'm liking something low-scoring in the teens, back and forth. Have no clue who's going to win the game. I do believe Duke is a better team, but it's one of those things that they're on the road, though. So who really knows what's going to happen. No clue. Flip a coin for me here, and I'm just going to take the under.
Fair enough. Yeah, I like Duke in the spot, actually. This is going to be one of my plays of the week. I believe they win this game, but it's going to be pretty close. I do like the under as well. I believe they do win this game about 20-14, something around that figure.
Fair enough. Not a real play for me on this one. I've been following Duke more since I know that you've been talking about them, so it gets me kind of watching them. I kind of like to watch the plays that we play, even if they're not my plays.
Yeah, me too.
Pitt's the team that kind of, like you said, they're an interesting team. Not really sure what to make of them. At home, they're better, but at the same time, they can get up for a game. And is this a game they get up for? Maybe. It's hard to tell.
It could go either way.
Yeah, I don't have a real play on it, so I'll divert to basically you're liking Duke and you're liking the under. So
yeah,
I'll run with that one.
Good.
All right. Well, let's move into. Do you like Illinois, Maryland?
Yeah, I can be quick here because this is pretty boring, and this is a game that one of those that I think a bet is good, but you probably shouldn't be watching the game.
I had a few of those.
Yeah. This will be my fifth bet on Illinois this year. I am 2-2 record-wise, so this is the rubber match, as you said earlier, and hopefully it's a good one. This is pretty simple to me. Illinois usually hangs in games. I know they haven't done that the last couple weeks, but they played some significantly good teams the last couple weeks. Maryland is not one of those significant good teams. And what they do well defensively, that's kind of Maryland's sort of deal. And Maryland can't really throw the ball down the field very much, a la Illinois. And I just don't see how they score enough points, Maryland does. I mean, they can certainly win the game and probably will win the game, but to cover 17 or 18 points, ludicrous. I'm taking Illinois, plus 18.
Luda. All right. Prop bet time. Over under 1.5 untimed downs, Middle Tennessee at Old Dominion.
Ooh. That's a good line.
I mean, Old Dominion wants the over, certainly.
Yeah, it's amazing. All right, last kind of a game in this time slot. Like you said, BYU, Northern Illinois, anything going on there?
I have zero. I looked at it and I had nothing.
Cool. That's about what I had for it, too.
Excellent.
But I thought that may be right in your wheelhouse. So I'm 2 for 2 on picks, I think, in your wheelhouse.
Can't win them all. It's all right.
That's true. All right, well, let's move into the later slates. You got the 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. on the Pacific here. A couple of games. You got Kentucky and Missouri. Missouri, a home favorite of 7 points, much to the bafflement of many, considering Kentucky's ranked 14th or 15th in the nation. They got Benny Snell, all firing on all cylinders. But, I mean, I guess the only thing they can really see is that Missouri put, 70 points up last week against Memphis. 58% of the money going in on the University of Kentucky plus 7. 50% of the action, not the money. But you got a 6-1 Kentucky team at Missouri getting 7 points.
This one I've gone back and forth on. My initial lean was Kentucky, just getting this many points. It seemed weird, and then I kind of backed up, and I was like, wait a minute. It had that sort of square play-ish feel to it. And I'm just trying to delve deep into this, and I couldn't come up with a great answer, so it remained kind of just a lean sort of play. I didn't actually get anything on this thing. I think we all sort of know these teams relatively well by this point. Kentucky's gotten a lot of play in the press, and so we know Benny Snell is sort of taking this thing by storm here, and he's a big talker, and he's backed it up 100% so far this year, so it's really impressive. In Missouri, we know is the big offense that hasn't been a big offense until last week. They finally showed their teeth again and throttled somebody putting up a lot of points. So I don't know. Can you put up a lot of points against Kentucky? Probably not. But is Kentucky really going to strike fear in you? Offensively, no. They don't do that. As good as Benny Snell has been, they're not scoring very many points. They're playing all these really weird, close struggle fests that they keep winning. They somehow keep winning all of these games, except for the Texas A&M game. I don't know.
You seem exhausted by making this.
It's just such a tough game because I could see both ways. Like if Kentucky wins, this is one of those things. Kentucky wins by 10. I'm like, well, obviously that they could have won this game. Like they seem to be the better team, and like whatever. And then there's Missouri wins by 27 going away, and you're like, yeah, this offense is too good. Of course they couldn't stop this offense. So I have no idea. I don't know.
All that to say, I have no idea.
My lean is Kentucky. My lean remains Kentucky getting the points, but I like to get points on these spots. So
yeah, I think Kentucky's the better team in the spot. It's kind of an interesting line that they're getting 7. I mean, even though Missouri's at home, I like Kentucky plus the points. I think they keep this close, if not even maybe come out ahead by a field goal. So I think the smart play is Kentucky plus the points. Maybe sprinkle a little on the money line.
Well, I'm not a smart man, but that doesn't mean I'm going to take Missouri here. I think what they see, a lot of the betting public sees, is Missouri put up 70 fucking points last week, and the line's only 56.5. So I think Kentucky plays well enough defense, and Missouri's not as good as like you said, not as good as on offense as they were last week. Nope. It hasn't been to the tune of that many points. I think this is an easy undercover. I'm betting this one. I liked it under 54. I definitely like it under 56.5. I think this game.
Yeah, I do like the under as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think this game is 24-14 UK or somewhere around the line. I think Kentucky's also probably a good spot here. But the only way I can see this game touching that is if somehow Missouri blows out Kentucky, which I don't see. But like you said, you never quite know in this spot. All right, so let's continue on with these later games, and we have Washington at Cal. Washington going on the road again after beating Colorado, and they are currently an 11.5-point favorite after opening up at 14. Line hasn't moved, and the total for 45 points right now. Washington, the Huskies, they have what seems to be an upward trend. Cal started out pretty well, but they've kind of regressed back to the mean. In terms of their record, but I like Browning and Gaskins in this spot. But tell me I'm wrong.
I don't know if you're wrong in that statement. I mean, Cal's 0-3 against the spread at home. Washington's 1-2 on the road against the spread. But this one's a tough one. Even the total's in a tough spot. I think it might come down to that number. Actually, I don't know.
11.5 points.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It could fall between the 10 and the 14 range. You're right.
In that spot, give me the home dog, I guess. It got into my head, so.
I'm going to go a different direction. I do think that Washington has gotten things under control here. I think the tough loss to Oregon, I was really interested to see how they would respond to that against a pretty good Colorado team, although a team that's definitely hurting on the offensive side with injuries, and they responded quite well last week. They didn't end up covering that spread. I mean, they were laying 17. But but they responded well, and they handled that, and they dominated that game for the most part. And I liked seeing that. And this seems to still be the best team in the Pac-12. Maybe the only other team that's close to them is Utah, but and Utah played a really poor game against them 4 or 5 weeks ago. I don't see that happening again if they have to play again. But Washington seems like the best team on this side, and California still has had struggles. I know they blew out Oregon State last week, but I don't hold a lot into that, as Oregon State's so bad that I'm going to lay the points here. I don't do that a ton, but I'm going to lay it. I wish I'd gotten it earlier in the week when it opened, but I like Washington here for a lot of reasons. I'm just trying to figure out how Cal scores. I don't know how they're going to score in this game. I have no clue. What they do well is usually running the ball with Patrick Laird and crew, and Washington's rush defense is the best in the Pac-12. So I don't know how it's going to happen.
Fair enough. I mean, like you said, Washington's got a great defense. Cal's got a great nothing. But that's a tough one. I think I have to agree with Token. I think this game's going to fall really close to that line. And in that spot, I'll take the points. I think it's 31-21, 31-22 in that spot. I'll take Cal. I don't feel good about it, though.
Yeah. It's tough to feel good about it. Yeah.
All right, let's see. One game I feel great about is UNLV and San Jose State.
Are you being serious?
No, I'm just kidding.
I actually thought you were being serious for a second.
No, I just saw it down the line of the list. But
do we have to talk about this game?
we don't have to. I just feel like being in Las Vegas, we have a duty and an obligation to make a 15-second PSA about UNLV. San Jose State 3-3. This is what's crazy though. 6.5-point movement. San Jose State opened up 3.5-point dog. Now they're a 3-point favorite. This is one of those things. It's like this is the kind of bullshit that circles UNLV. Who the fuck knows? You got 0-7, 0-3 at home.
Oh, there's.
All right, 15 seconds begins now.
Both teams are a dumpster fire, especially without Armani Rogers for UNLV, which is the key to all of this. Great running back they have. Don't know if that matters. San Jose State, very, very bad. Poorly coached. Bad in all facets. I'll take the points, UNLV.
Sounds like some blue cheese going on over there. Some stinky news. I mean, UNLV needs this one to pretty much make a statement to even potentially be in the running for a bowl game. And I don't see it happening. I believe both teams are a dumpster fire, and this field literally catches on fires, and both teams somehow make it out alive.
Nobody wins.
Yeah.
Tie game. Give me UNLV just because I'm a homer, and they live here and they play here, and
They somewhat breathe there?
yeah, I just don't like the San Jose for whatever reason. Never been a fan of that city.
Really?
No, I'm just making shit up, dude.
Oh, I used to call it.
I had to fill the 15 seconds.
Well, I used to call it San Josie all the time.
Good one.
Yeah.
All right, Wazoo and Stanford, another interesting game. Not following up, but let's cut UNLV out of that point. Another interesting game after UW and Cal. You got Washington State and Stanford, which will probably also have huge implications on the Pac-12 North. That goes without being said. You got 6-1 Wazoo after their big victory against Oregon, and you have Stanford 5-2, who also beat Oregon, but at the same time they are having a little trouble at home covering. They're 2-2 against the spread at home, 4-3 against the spread overall, and you've got a team that at this point in time are the Kansas City Chiefs of the college football, 7-0 against the spread, no matter where they play.
That's the end all be all there. They're covering spreads, and it's hard to be betting against teams like that. Key here, I think, which a lot of people are looking at, is will Bryce Love play for Stanford? That's the tipping point. The backups, like they usually have some pretty good backups at running back over the last many years in the Shaw system, and there aren't any. Cameron Scarlett is not impressive, and they've been playing a freshman too a little bit when Love has not played, and he's been maybe slightly better, but nothing more. So when Love doesn't play, this team really does kind of fall apart a little bit, especially on offense, and that concerns me. I don't really have a play because I want to know what happens with Bryce Love. This one is like the A.J. Dillon issue that we had with Boston College. I mean, how can you really bet on this game if you don't know like the main player, whether he's playing or not? So I'm going to stay away from it until I know what's going on with him. And that's pretty much where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually roll with the 7-0. I'm gonna say they make it 8-0, and I'm gonna actually say they win this game, love or no love.
I agree with that statement. I believe Wazoo State's the better team, and they keep it rolling. So
they do seem like the better team, which is surprising that we can even say that. But they seem like the better team on paper. I mean, it's incredible. So yeah.
All right, we got North Carolina State traveling to Syracuse to play in the Carrier Dome. I can't believe they still play in the Carrier Dome. That's just crazy.
Have you been there? I've never been there.
It's well, God, that was built in the 70s.
I've heard it's really bad. Yeah,
it's old, dude. I mean, it works for them, I guess, because they're not a big time college football program.
Yeah.
And they are a big time college basketball program, which makes me kind of think like, man, all this money and all these facilities, and you still play in the Carrier Dome. But I guess that's a nostalgia thing, but whatever. Anyways, Syracuse opened up as a favorite in this spot, and I guess bettors jumped all over North Carolina State, moved it to now actually North Carolina State is a 2-point favorite in this spot. Money and action pretty even. North Carolina State obviously coming back off of getting their doors blown in against Clemson, and a team that Syracuse didn't actually struggle with. They played them pretty well, but that was a different point in the season. Where do you see this one shaping up?
This one, to me, is all about the Syracuse quarterbacks. And after Eric Dungey was pulled last week, Syracuse's quarterback, who's been phenomenal pretty much throughout his career, but been more of a runner versus passer. He's the great sort of RPO type quarterback that you want, and that's so good in the Dino Babers system. He pulled him. And he did for the backup, who is a really, really highly touted pass-first pro-style quarterback named Tommy DeVito, who has been lighting up. In fact, he was at one of those elite quarterback programs and roomed with Tua Tagovailoa at Alabama, and in that camp, he was regarded as probably the best pure passer out of a lot of these big-name players. Justin Fields was there, amongst others. So Syracuse has a big-time guy, quarterback, and I think they're trying to really get him in a point here. And Babers has said this week that he's not going to say who is going to start or not. He's kept the depth chart, the official depth chart, of Dungey at the top, but he's basically saying nothing else, and he's kind of making it seem like we're going to go with the guy who looks to be the best. So nobody really knows what's going on.
Kind of feel it out in-game?
They might. My guess is that Dino's pretty hardcore and on point with stuff. I think he's already made a decision.
Okay.
So I don't know. I think he's going to go with a guy who, for sure, and then I guess if maybe someone struggles, he'll go with somebody else. But I think he's made a decision. I just don't know how to read this. I don't know who it is. And to me, that is immensely important in this game. Immensely important, because both quarterbacks are very different, both very, very good in their own aspect. And I don't really know what to think or what to do. So I'm actually going to ignore this game and not be involved in it because I don't know with these two guys, and I think it's that important for this one.
Fair enough.
Boring take, I'm sorry. But
no, you're fine. I think Syracuse, slightly better team at home, gives NC State some competition. Pretty close game. Syracuse just squeaks it out, in my mind.
Yeah, actually, that's what I was curious. Does one quarterback give you concern or confidence over the other in Syracuse? Because I feel like I don't know much about DeVito, but I felt like with Dungey, they could keep this close to NC State and potentially beat him. And you're telling me DeVito might be better than him.
I don't think there's any doubt. If you look at it from a pure quarterback perspective, watching somebody play, you would unquestionably think DeVito's better. Unquestionably. Because he can throw it with a flick of a wrist anywhere. I mean, he's that kind of arm strength.
What about game management and all that, dude?
Exactly.
You don't have any of it.
And that's exactly the thing. He doesn't have this game. He doesn't have a lot of game experience at the college level. And that's my big concern. Is Dungey is also a guy that you want to go to war with. He's one of those guys that he'll get the extra yard. He gives up his body at any point he can. Probably not something you really want to see as a coach in every down, but he's a guy that everybody loves for that aspect of him. He's a hardcore player, and so yes, I agree. In a game like this, where you really want to be able to be holding the ball a little bit more too, and actually control some of the tempo in this, because NC State can go off the rails on you at any time too. They got a great offense. I agree. I think I would want Dungey to play. I just don't know where Babers is going to end. Predicting what Dino Babers does, who's an unbelievable offensive mind, has always been difficult to do, even going back to his Bowling Green days. So I'm with you. I just don't know. I have no idea. I would prefer Dungey, but don't know what's going to happen.
Fair enough. I actually, before this game, liked Syracuse, and actually, even though you're kind of on the fence, I felt pretty confident no matter who they put out there, they still can beat North Carolina State in the sense of I think North Carolina State played their Super Bowl, lost it, got crushed. And even though they're not out of ACC play, I feel like mentally they may feel like they're out of ACC play. So I'm going to take Syracuse I'll probably just scrap the 2, go with an upset at this point. They've already had one big upset in Florida State this year at home, so they may take the roof off the Carrier Dome in this one if they beat NC State. So, all right, well that's going to wrap up the afternoon games or middle of the evening games here. Let's go to the late games, and we've got a few that are going to be. Actually, you know what? I want to back up. I didn't want to skip this game, even though we only have a few seconds or a few minutes left in the podcast. Texas A&M, Mississippi State. Initial just thoughts. Mississippi State's a 1.5-point favorite right now.
This one was too tough for me. I couldn't figure out a way to get around all this. I think both teams could easily win by that one score late. Both teams are really solid, much better than I expected both of them to be after all the turmoil with coaching changes and stuff. No idea here. If I had to lean, I would take Mississippi State because I think they are still underrated by the country in general. So that would be my lean, but I like both teams a lot. I don't have much of a take beyond that.
Yeah, in the spot I also like Mississippi State. I think at home, giving up 1.5 against a pretty decent Texas A&M team. Mississippi State needs this game to push closer to a bowl game, so lean towards that.
Yeah, I actually believe on paper Texas A&M is the better team, even though they are on the road, and this game is just the spread's so close in this spot. It's basically a money line bet, and I'll just take the fact that I believe. Yeah, it's tough, but I think I'm going to take Texas A&M in this spot to win and go to 7-2 in that spot. So, all right, didn't want to skip that one because I thought that was a pretty good game in that last
really
batch of. All right, we got a couple minutes here. We'll cover 2 of the late night games, the 2 biggest ones. Let's start with Notre Dame and Navy. Number 3 Notre Dame, obviously laying 24 points in San Diego, which I read a stat the other day. They're very poor west of the Rockies, but then again, Navy's not really, a huge challenge. But at the same time, 24 points is a lot. 60% of the action currently going in on the midshipmen. Game in San Diego, 7-0 versus 2-5.
Very strange place to be playing this game.
Right? To be honest with you, at first I thought they were going to play like an aircraft carrier or something.
That would have been pretty cool.
Remember they played that basketball game?
Yeah, I
awesome,
saw how they did that. That was pretty cool. But, this one's really kind of odd in that sense, so I don't know how to read that one. All I know is I can just, I guess, be pretty frank with this one. I have usually bet on Navy in this game a lot. I've bet on it, I think, 3 out of the last 4 years, or 3 out of the last 5 years. And it's done well for the most part because usually you have to lay too many points with Notre Dame, and it is what it is, and Navy keeps games close. But Notre Dame has 2 weeks to prepare here, which I think helps a lot. Always good to have an extra one against a triple option team. And Navy, to me, still appears to be weaker than usual. I think 2 sides because of injuries, number 1, which they still have some people out, and number 2, they look like defensively they are not the same team that they've been in the last 2 or 3 years. They're giving up way too many chunk plays, especially through the air. Defensive backs have been weak, and I just, I can't endorse taking Navy, which I usually like to do when they're getting big points here. I don't have a play for Notre Dame. I mean, that's terrible as well. Don't want to do that. But
kind of sounds like Spike on his NFL picks.
Is this how it is? Yeah.
Talking himself out of everything.
Out of place.
Yeah, I don't want to be in the Spike realm at this point because he's just been going back and forth and very uncomfortable in his picks. And I guess if he's been struggling that much, it's hard to be confident. But I don't know. I would take Navy if I had to. Despite all of that I just said, I would take Navy because it's 24 minutes, just so many points. But I don't really like much of a play here. I mean, who knows what's going to happen in San Diego? It's tough to read. I don't know.
I actually like Navy in the spot. I think they do cover. They keep it a little interesting. I do lean towards the under as well. I think Navy's defense steps it up this game. And they only lose by about 2 scores. Final score 27-13, something around there.
All right, I like Navy in this spot too. I think actually this probably may even be close to a single-digit victory for Notre Dame in this spot. But we've got a couple seconds left. No analysis. 3.5 points. Texas is favored. 7 versus 21. Longhorns, Okie State.
If we know Ellinger goes, I'll take Texas. If he is a no-go, I'll take Oklahoma State.
Yeah, this one I'm taking before game time. Same prediction as well.
Yeah, I agree. If Ellinger goes, this game's better. But I'm taking Okie State either way with the 3.5 points. Texas wins if Ellinger's in. They win by 3. which gives me the hook. So, not the hook 'em horns. So, anyways, well, we appreciate you guys listening to another edition of the Picks and Chatter podcast, NCAA edition. I got about 15 seconds here. I want to thank the sponsors, 12-Ounce Sports Radio, VGK Pop Sockets, and ChaiPoker.com. For Token Tony, for Token Johnson, for Fake Token, for Token Tony, for Tony Johnson. I am Aaron. We appreciate it. Stay tuned for the NFL picks coming soon.